You're listening to episode number 162 of the Chopped Podcast. Hey everyone, I'm Marley of the site Namely Marley. I'm your host, and this, my friends, is the Chopped Podcast. If you love food in any shape or form and you blog about it, then you've come to the right place because, that's what we do here. We talk about food from the perspective of blogging about it, and we talk about blogging from the perspective of food. We've got it all covered. So how are you today? I hope you're doing great. Today, I want to talk with you about a topic that has been on my mind a lot lately. It's about cultivating strong women in your life. Clearly, this is an episode for women, but it's also for men because I do think cultivating strong women in your life is important for men as well. I personally have been very blessed by some very strong women in my life, and I've definitely tried to encourage that in my daughter's life as well. I loved exposing her to all kinds of people, particularly, women that I saw as professionals so that she could feel inspired by them. We had a foreign exchange student from Thailand one year, and I was a single mom in those days, and I remember that Dion told me once that she was shocked to learn how much women could do in this country. I think that's because she saw me, as a mom. I had a job, I traveled, I supervised people on my job, and I even mowed the yard. So I think from her perspective, where she came from a culture where families were oftentimes disappointed to have girls, she told me that, in her family, there were 2 girls and that there was disappointment in that, and that she was so surprised to be here in the US and see people who were celebrating the fact that they were having daughters. We've come a long way, haven't we? But the real reason I wanted to share with you this topic today on cultivating strong women is because I lost one recently, and this will be a very hard episode for me, but I'm going to get through it, I promise. I'm going to do my best to not break down in the middle of this one, but it's so new and so raw for me that it is hard and awkward, to be completely honest. Don't you think it feels awkward to talk about somebody who is so strong in your life and then you're suddenly talking about them in the past tense? It's not always easy. But anyway, let's do this. And I will do my best to get through this without, like I say, breaking down. But there is a reason that this topic is so important for me to share with you. It's because without my friend Marty, I would not be here talking with you all at all, because Marty encouraged me to believe in myself and to follow my dreams when I wasn't hearing that, a lot in my life. So, oftentimes you probably have heard me talk about my adopted mom. That's Marty. That's just how I felt about her. She called Addie, my daughter, her honorary granddaughter. I am sure I'm not the only one. I think Marty was the kind of person that she was a very giving soul. And so I'm sure she had other people who were in that category. I was just thrilled to be one of them. And this is also, I call her my honorary mother, and it's nothing against my own mom. It's just that Marty was a different breed. To be honest, I have never met anybody like her. At the time I met Marty, I was going through a divorce. So I was about to become a single mom, and somebody told me about these 2 streets of duplexes. I was, kind of frantically searching for something that I could afford on my own because I was a stay-at-home mom at the time, and I wanted to be able to maintain this ability to have a lot of time with my daughter. That just felt very important to me. It was a driving force in my life. I wanted to have free time to spend with my daughter. And these duplexes had previously been owned by this guy that rented them all out. And then suddenly he decided that he was going to repaint and recarpet and sell them all as individual units. And so I was frantically, getting over there once I heard about it to get a real estate agent in there and get in there and find the one that I was going to buy. And they were selling so quickly that I was worried I wasn't going to get one. And so then I got one, and I loved it because the backyard backed up 2 blocks away was a park that I would take Addie to every day. And it was just a perfect setting. It was very affordable for me. There was a homeowners association that handled all the mowing and all that stuff. So it's not like I really, had wanted to do all those things, or maybe I didn't even care if I did those things or not. But it was nice to know that there was this exterior maintenance was provided. And the really beautiful thing is that Marty lived across the street. Her and her husband lived across the street, and they just took a keen interest in us and Addie right away. I think they loved, we'd be always outside playing and, teaching Addie how to ride the bike, and they, enjoyed watching all of that. And I'll be honest, at first, I really did not know how to react to Marty because Marty was, here's an example. So I would get home with the groceries and Addie and trying to shuffle everything inside, and I would get a phone call and Marty would say, I see that you just got home with your groceries, and I don't know if you realized that you left your garage door open. And, it's really important to keep your garage door closed because it's safer that way. And so I just wasn't used to that kind of thing. I wanted to say, the reason that I haven't closed the garage door yet is because I just got home with all these groceries and Addie, and I will get to it in a minute, with a little bit of frustration in my voice. Can you hear that? But see, I should tell you that, I grew up as kind of like a little hellion. I mean, I only know this because people tell me stories about how they would see me, riding my bicycle around with mud all over my face, but I'd always have a big smile and always be happy. But I was just kind of a free spirit, I guess I would say. So I just wasn't used to this kind of, somebody was really like watching everything I did and ready to chime in to let me know, how to do things differently. But the cool thing was eventually I started to realize that it was actually kind of nice. Like, I don't know, like Marty was watching over me all the time. And I think there was some security in that. And the next thing you know, Marty and I were on the phone probably 10 times a day, every single day, just talking to each other about every little thing that was going on. She was there for me through ups and downs of friendships failed and, just all kinds of things. And then I did move away to graduate school for a couple of years. It was a couple hours away. I just rented out my duplex while I was gone. And so Marty and I still talked every day on the phone. I was, able to tell her about all my experiences. And at one point in graduate school, I went off to Argentina for a class, and I was probably hyperventilating the day I called her because it was the day I had to leave, and I just couldn't imagine leaving Addie behind. It was really, really a difficult time, and Marty kind of talked me through all that and cried with me on the phone because it was, just really stressing me out. In fact, I think that's probably when I developed a fear of flying, and that's a topic for an entire a different day. But, Marty really talked me through a lot of things like that. I mean, the thing is, Marty learned all these things that she knew through the school of hard knocks. She learned everything the hard way because she just lived it. She went through all these things. She messed up, and then she finally got things right. She was married 3 times, and her third marriage was, the winner. It was the model, or the what she was probably searching for that whole time. And she had, I guess I would say, a tough love mentality when it was required, but she was also the most genuinely kind person you could imagine knowing. And I just have to tell you, that is a powerful combination. When you have this tough love mentality and you can say what you need to say and also love, just so extremely real, that is just amazing. I had, obviously thousands of conversations with Marty, and that tough love mentality of hers really helped me learn a lot because I was a people pleaser. So I kind of grew up just, trying not to ruffle feathers, trying really hard to be liked. And that is a way of living that can get you into a lot of trouble. I'll be honest. If you, just want to be liked all the time, I think it's a recipe for misery, and it's a recipe for causing problems because, you're going to say yes to conflicting things at some point in your life, and that's really problematic. I can give you an example because I found myself in a very toxic job environment. It didn't start out that way. It started out great, and it was actually pretty good. We were a nonprofit organization. We had a parent organization that was nonprofit, and we were nonprofit. And then at some point we became profit, and that's when the trouble began. That's when this kind of great working situation turned into something very toxic. And Marty coached me through so much of learning how to speak up for myself. I also had a therapist who was working with me at that time as well, because it was just, so extreme. And I really felt like I could figure this out. And between Marty and my therapist, I did finally start learning to speak up for myself in that work situation. And I will say this, I think when you are a people pleaser, kind of like, you're almost like a doormat, I think there are certain kinds of people who are drawn to that, and they know that you're not going to speak up. And so I think that in some ways, maybe it's a way of helping you heal that. I have no idea. I think that's actually true, that these people are drawn to you as ways of helping you heal that. But let me just say specifically, in this toxic job environment, I was actually the subject of sexual harassment, and I did my best to work directly with this individual, my boss, but eventually I took the situation to HR. And I'll be honest with you, there have been so many times I have thought back and forth between whether that was the right thing to do or not. Should I have? Maybe I should have just gone and gotten another job. But then again, maybe sometimes you have to just stand up for what's right. And so I did that. I took the situation to HR. And 2 weeks to the day of walking into HR's office, I was demoted. My boss was able to stay in his position. I mean, that's just the common thing. I think the things that are happening today, we kind of start to accept as normal. That is not normal. That is not, typically the studies showed that when women came forward with situations like that, it was always that the woman either got demoted or fired. So I'm really thrilled that things are changing. However, that just was the situation I was in. And I have to tell you, it was a little bit infuriating to me, because I felt like I wasn't only going forward with sexual harassment. I had other issues that were going on with this boss of mine, and I had those all written down and documented, and I just felt like I wasn't being heard. So it's like silence all around, crickets everywhere. And so I sent an email to our board of directors, which is not the kind of thing I would typically do, but I did that. Again, crickets, nothing. No word from anybody about the email, or, it's as if it was all of a sudden as if nobody wanted to talk with me. In fact, I was a strange situation, but there was Marty behind me. I was, of course, telling her every step of the way. Marty was cheering me on, saying, "You go, girl, you've got this." And so again, I didn't hear anything. So you know what I did next? This is even crazier than my first step, because I mentioned earlier that we were owned by a nonprofit organization, and I just felt for certain they would be concerned about this situation. So I sent that same email to that board of directors. Again, nothing, crickets, no words, no responses, no, I have to be honest, even to this day, I'm still a little baffled by that. But I mean, on some level, I kind of get it. It's just on other levels, I kind of wonder, I am not a rebel rouser. I am not the kind of person who, again, I'm this people pleaser. So this was not who I am or who I was. But there was Marty. She was so proud of me, and she, proud of me that I was standing up for myself, standing up for others, that it made me feel sure that I was doing the right thing. So I stayed on in that demoted position for about a year. I was really thinking that my desire was to learn new skills, and that might take me further after I left. I have to be honest, it was not easy to be in that environment. As you can imagine, my boss was not so thrilled in me being there. And there were plenty of other people that, he encouraged to, not be so nice to me. So it was difficult, but I'm glad that I stuck it out. There's that quote that says, "Quiet women don't make history." It's not like as if what I did made any kind of history at all, but I felt like I spoke up. Somebody has to be the first one to do that, right? If nobody speaks up at all, there's no history to be made. So eventually my boss, I'm going to say this in air quotes, resigned. I say that in air quotes because his resignation announcement came out on the very same day that his resignation was effective. I can read between the lines. That to me sounds like a little bit more than resign. shining. So, I think I used to hear somebody say bad eggs always get found out. So again, I feel like I was maybe the first one that came forward, and maybe I imagine other people came forward too. And so like I say, somebody has to be the first, somebody has to do this. And I bring this up just as an example of, the kinds of struggles that Marty helped me through. As you can imagine, it was a very difficult time. I'm not used to people not liking me. So to have this whole organization felt like, with all the quietness, nobody wanted to talk with me. And then the people who did talk to me were not always thrilled about it. It just felt, very odd to me. And I felt like a fish out of water at that point. And so I don't know. I was really honored to have Marty, walk me through a lot of things like that. That's one thing to do that on an organizational level, but on an individual level too, we all have these situations where we have a friendship and somebody says something and, things get awkward, they don't agree with you on religion or politics or whatever. And it ends up being there's a confrontation or a conflict. And I really have had a difficult time in those situations. For me, it's almost easier just to walk away than to say, stand up for myself or to say anything. And at first, I could only speak my mind if it came out in tears. I would work myself up so much. But, eventually things got easier until now I can say difficult things kind of on the fly almost. I can just say it. And my sister's impressed with me when we're dealing with my mom because, for example, we moved my mom to an apartment last year from her house, and that was not easy. My mom did not see the vision that we had. That was, you don't need to be messing with this house anymore. It's too big, and you need to be in a situation where you're around other people. And it was hard to get her through that. And I guess I realized that I learned from Marty how to say these difficult things and still be this loving person. So it really helped me a lot. So I wanted to share with you some of my favorite advice from Marty, my Martyisms. There are several of them. And I have to emphasize again, these things really changed my life and moved me on to a trajectory where I am living the life of my dreams. It doesn't mean that I don't have any issues, and it doesn't mean that there aren't problems. It doesn't mean that everything's rosy and all that. It just means that, I don't know. I like to think, I know there's this old story, and I'm going to change it because I'm vegan and I like to have things that are not animal focused. So you give somebody a loaf of bread and they can eat for a day. But if you teach them how to bake a loaf of bread, then they can eat for a lifetime. And that's what I feel like with Marty. She taught me how to break bread. And that's what these little tidbits of advice are for. I want to share with you. So let's start with the biggest of them all. Marty repeated this to me so many times that I actually even wrote it into a song. I just love this saying so much. And, when you're in situations where the other person is demanding something, and I would be the kind of person just to give it to them. If I felt like they wanted something, I want to make people happy, right? I had a core belief, I guess, that if I self-sacrificed, other people would know that and they would appreciate it. It's as if I expected them to say, thank you so much for giving me that little thing that, that the last bit of what you had. And now you've made me so happy. I really appreciate that. But, instead, you would often get that kind of person. As I mentioned before, the kind of people who are attracted to the doormats are the ones that are happy to walk all over them. So she gave me these golden words of advice. Are you ready for this? Okay. If only one of you can be happy, it might as well be you. Let me just repeat that. If only one of you can be happy, it might as well be you. It's a simple phrase, but there's so much truth in it. If you find yourself with one of those children of the dark, you know who I mean, those supernova black holes that are disguised as a person, they suck the energy out of the room. Or maybe it's, more subtle than that. Maybe it takes you a while to kind of figure them out, but maybe they're like an Eeyore that's always sad and always seeing the glasses half empty. And you feel like you can just help them. You feel like, there's some people I know in my life that I've talked to for years about, how they could make their life better. And, you spend a lot of your energy trying to make that black hole turn to light, and black holes don't turn to light. So, it's not going to happen. And she said this, she really worked hard to get this through my head, because I have taken on a lot of lost causes over the years, and she would witness that, and she would talk to me about not being a part of the drama. And if you think you can help people, I mean, obviously that's a different story. Marty was the first person to help people, but you just have to be discerning. I mean, I think this is a skill and it takes time to get used to it. But if you just repeat this mantra, if only one of us can be happy, it might as well be me. So I might as well know what I need to be happy in this situation and do it. And that person can then be responsible for creating their own happiness, because really that's what it's all about. I have no control over that person. I have control over myself. And that's, basically what she's saying. Make yourself happy. Okay. So here's another statement I love from Marty. People are guilty until proven innocent. Obviously, she's not speaking legally here, right? Because that goes against what we believe in legally. But it was a matter of trust. You can't give out your trust willy-nilly. And that's, I think, Marty just reminded me time and time again that trust is something that has to be earned. And I feel like I've been the kind of person who trusts instantly. I sometimes refer to myself as a golden retriever. The one from the movie Up. I have just met you and I love you. That was me. And I think I was constantly being disappointed because I was just, giving myself out there too often. And then Marty told me how your trust is something people have to earn. They demonstrate to you over time that they are worthy of it. Okay, so that was something that took me a while to learn. I don't think it means to be cautious around people. I think it just means to be neutral. It means I don't have to just give everything away at the beginning. I think that's been my tendency as well. It's just to kind of be, this is the story and this is, throw everything out on the table at once. I think that's probably I could see some pros and cons to that, but I think it's something that you should reserve for people who have deserved that trust. I believe there was a quote by Maya Angelou about something like that, something about not sharing your stories with people who don't deserve it. I look up that quote. I think that's there. And I think there's some value to that. Okay, so let's go on to the next point from Marty. It's better to be respected than liked. I have wasted so much energy trying to get people to like me. And here's what Marty says about that. If you have to try to get someone to like you, they're probably not worth your effort. She would also follow that up with, people are either going to like you or they're not. Just be yourself. It's better to be respected than liked. And so, that it was a huge lesson for me to learn as well, again, because I think it's been a big goal of mine to have people to like me. And so I just think it's impossible. I think the more you try to get people to like you, the more you're not authentic, the more, you are groveling back and forth between opposing things because, you're just kind of, I don't know, I've often felt a little bit like, the court jester, just trying to make people happy. And that just leaves you feeling empty inside. So I really like this notion that Marty would talk about, is that it's better to be respected than liked. Okay, another thing that she really worked hard to coach me through. I mean, we had more than a few times talking about not being afraid of tough conversations. Her point was, if you're speaking honestly and you speak your piece to the other person in a way that's, you don't need to be nasty about it. But if that person becomes offended when you're just speaking your truth, then that's on them. Say what you need to say. Say it from your own perspective, not that, again, not trying to put on them or be judgmental in any way. Just say your piece. Obviously, another thing about this is that you can't be passive aggressive in this. You can't be trying to get somebody to do something by you saying something to make them feel guilty. You know what I'm talking about. Just be clear and be honest and have those tough conversations. I had somebody else in my life that told me once that sometimes if you really are having a hard time just getting the words out, you can just preface it with, this is really hard for me to say, but I'm just going to get these words out and say it to you. And I think, believe it or not, that being able to preface that way really helped me a lot too. Another thing Marty would tell me is you don't do anybody any favors by not saying it. So, for example, if I had an employee that was constantly doing poor work, it doesn't do them any favors to let them get away with that, because if that continues and then other people will start to notice it, then, the next thing you know, they could be fired. What's better for them to experience a tough conversation with me or to get fired? And so, you really may think you're doing somebody favors by let's just not go there. But in reality, avoiding those tough conversations is really not the right way to do it. You've got to learn to have the tough conversations, lay the cards out on the table, and speak your truth. Another thing that I used to love that Marty would say is happiness is the best revenge. So, when you parted ways with someone and you feel a little hurt about it and you kind of want to call them and you want to let them have it. I've been there more than a few times, and Marty's advice has always been to me, happiness is the best revenge. Not that kind of fake, look at me, I'm happy, and, look at this new outfit I've got in or whatever. It's not that kind of fake happy, but a real, authentic happiness. Live your life, be happy. That is the only revenge that matters. Another thing along those lines is Marty would oftentimes say, kill him with kindness. It's just, kindness is always a good approach to take. Also just discovering your own happiness. And, if there's a relationship that's ended, whether it be a friendship or something more, what is it worth to say one more thing to that? If it's over, it's over. Just move on and find ways to be happy. And, even if it ended badly, I don't think speaking with anger towards that person is going to solve anything. So just move on, be happy. That's what Marty would tell me. And that's what I would like to relay to you. The other thing I did not actually hear Marty say, this is something that I actually just observed her demonstrating, which is really love people. She could have those difficult conversations with the people in her life, and she would not let that hold her back from showing kindness and compassion too. I can give you an example, because Marty was the treasurer of our homeowners association, the 2 streets of duplexes that we lived on. Somebody had to arrange for the lawns to be mowed and all of these things. And that was Marty. And even though she was the treasurer, she really ran the place, to be completely honest. And she was tough as nails when she needed to be. And, can you just imagine if you had to call somebody and let them know they're 3 months behind on their homeowners dues, and that there's going to be a lien put on against them and legal action could be taken. And then you see them out getting their mail the next day. And if it was me, I would be tempted to kind of wait a few minutes to go get the mail myself, but not Marty. She would just go out there and smile and greet them with the kindness and compassion. She just knew how to shower kindness and love. In fact, every year she made these baskets and baskets of goodies that she delivered to neighbors and her doctors and friends and family. She spent months making these, because it'd be like all these different kinds of breads and cookies and chocolate covered peanut butter balls. And, she delivered them around the holidays to everybody. So there was a lot of holiday kind of themed goodies in there. If you were in Marty's circle, she showed you love and goodies. You knew you were in Marty's circle. So it felt really good. And I think sometimes it's a little too easy to be in your own mind. I feel like that for myself, at least, I think especially as an entrepreneur, I feel like I'm kind of holed up at times, and I don't put myself out there as much. I don't, I want to make sure that the people I know that I love are around me, that they know that I love them. And, goodies, of course, is not the only way to show that. But sending cards, sending letters, calling people, talking to them. I think we can get so caught up in Instagram and all this online world that we forget to interact with people in real time. Okay, so this next one's going to sound counterintuitive, but listen to this one. Don't spoil the people you love. I know, doesn't that sound like it's completely the opposite of what I just said? But let me just say this. Marty would tell me time and time again about some people in her life that she spoiled and turned into a monster. She mentioned to me that there was a man in her life that she just anticipated what he needed before he needed it. And the next thing you know, it didn't take long before he began to expect that. And eventually, she started to resent that because it was, didn't feel good to have people expecting it. It's one thing to anticipate and to give, but it's another when others start to expect us. I think this goes back to number one, right? Where, I think she was doting on him to make him happy, and it backfired. That's probably how she actually learned that lesson, now that I think about it. So don't spoil the people you love by giving them every little thing. She used to tell me that she would tell her kids, I am not a short order cook. In other words, she would lovingly prepare the dinner, and if that's not what they wanted, then they can go make something else. That's basically what she would say. The other thing I used to love that she would say is to her teenage kids, she would say, I don't care if I have to stand on a stool with a pot in my hand, you will respect me. She was fun. She had a nice little Southern Missouri accent, which I think it's very hard to get the Missouri accent just right. I watch a lot of shows these days where they're based in Missouri, and I don't think they get it sounds to me more like a Georgia accent. It's very different. The Missouri accent is so freaking cool. I love it. And Marty had it. So you could just imagine this little lady with this great little accent and, this, sweet voice really, but just, she was full of spitfire and she was going to be respected by her kids. And I loved that. Okay. Here's another thing I loved about Marty. She knew her power was more than about beauty. I did not know Marty in her youth, but I could tell that she was beautiful then, and she was beautiful to me now. I loved how Marty accepted herself for who she was all along the way. She did not shy away from pictures. I mean, think about how many times that we shy away from pictures because, oh, I'm fat, I gained weight, or I hate these wrinkles around my eyes. I just did not see that in Marty at all. She just accepted herself and she accepted her style. She wasn't worried about fitting in with everybody. She knew her style and she liked it. And if styles changed after that, she didn't care. She wore what she liked, and she would search to find the things that she liked. And she didn't focus on, her looks. She focused on the friendships and the family that was around her. And she would love the picture from that. And I mean, I'm just saying, I think that sometimes we just focus so much on, thinking that beauty is the only thing that matters. And I just feel like the messages I got from Marty is, know your power, know who you are, and, just go from that. So, okay, that's the end of the tips that I have for Marty. But I found out about Marty's death on Facebook. But honestly, it's the weirdest thing because I had a premonition before that. We were getting ready to go on our vacation, where Sean and I go to North Dakota every year. And Marty and I were trying to find time for lunch. We're texting each other back and forth, trying to get it all worked out. And I was hoping to get it in before we left on our trip, but it wasn't looking like it was going to happen. And I don't know, I had this moment where I thought, I hope Marty doesn't die while I'm gone. And I should preface the fact that she was not feeling well. And Marty, as strong as she was in spirit, her body was, she had a lot of health issues and things would really set her back. And so I don't know why that thought came to my mind. I know at the moment, it just floored me. And then afterwards, I found out that actually the moment I had that thought, she had already passed. I just didn't know it yet. So it was Facebook that confirmed it for me. And I was there for something entirely different. And that notice the family had left on her page, really floored me. And I found myself rereading it like I couldn't believe that was real. So I haven't been on Facebook much after that, as you can imagine. I mean, come on, it was a bit of a shock, and maybe I'm a little bit afraid of Facebook now. Man, it can deliver some bad stuff. I will get over it. I'm sure I will be back on Facebook soon, but tomorrow is Marty's celebration of life, and so maybe I'm kind of working to get through that. The one thing I know is I am not saying goodbye because I just feel it. I feel her presence with me, and her wisdom is still repeating in my mind. And I hope that it is there for you too now. I hope that you can have a Marty in your life or someone like her. And if you don't have that in your life right now, I hope you cultivate conditions for her to show up, because having a powerful woman in your life is so important. They've been through the things, they know what you're going through. And that, I'm sorry, it's just more than a degree in psychiatry that a therapist might have is great. There's some value to that. I do not put down therapists. We have mental health issues in my family, so I'm very, very, all for therapy. But I also think that Marty was probably the best therapist I had. Here's the question that I ask myself: how do you cultivate the conditions for having a strong woman in your life? It's a tough question, because I feel like I was so lucky to meet Marty. And to be honest, I just can't even imagine being so lucky to meet someone like her again. But I have to hold that thought at bay, because it feels very closed off when I think that, it's like, in other words, things in the past are better than things in the future is a very closed mind way of living. And it's not something Marty would love. So I have to go away from that. I also realize that I have been closed off lately. I have had a very tight circle of friends, and I think I got a little too comfortable in that. I mean, that's the other thing I would probably say I loved about Marty, is she was always open to meeting new people. She was cheerful to people in the grocery store, and she was cheerful to people, and new people that moved in. I felt like she was constantly open to meeting new people, and I see in myself that I have been kind of closed off. Maybe, you get burned a couple of times and you're like, it's just not worth it, right? This, that saying they say about melons that, I think it's a poem, but all I know is that it's, friends are like melons. You have to go through a lot of them to find a good one. And I think the same thing is true of friends. And so I think, I just have to realize that not every friend is going to be your best friend, but be open to friendship, be open to kindness, and then see what connections are made. And that's going to be my plan moving forward as well, to cultivating more strong women showing up in my life, and maybe being a strong woman for other people. I think that's the other thing, is that we can, if you're the one that's been through the school of hard knocks, you can be that example for other people and come out, through the other side shining and happy, and a better person for it as a result. Okay, so that's it for today's show. I did it. I got through it. I had a couple of tough moments, but I did it. Thank you. I am going to have these points up on the show notes page so that you could go and see that. I'm so disappointed that I didn't really end up with a photo of me and Marty. I talk about all the photos, but I don't have a photo of the two of us, so I won't be sharing a photo of her, but you can just know that there was a lot of love there, and a lot of happiness, and a lot of inspiration, and I give her credit for helping me be the person that I was meant to be. And I'm just grateful that I told her that so many times, so that, she felt that love back. And cultivate good friendships in your life. And I think blogging is important. I really do. And I know it's a lot of hard work, but at the same time, if we don't have friendships, what's it all about anyway, right? So cultivate those friendships in your life, and particularly find ways to have strong women a part of that. So you know what? You inspire me, and I hope today's show was helpful and inspirational to you as well. So thanks for listening, and have a great week.